Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number one in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Yes. Yeah, you hear that sound? That means it's time for Tiger Claw Radio, everybody. What's going on? It's me, your host, Critical Failure. This week, we've got some chip tunes from the vault, all the way back from the 8-Bit Collective days. So these are not available on the internet anymore. The only place you're going to hear them is here, and maybe if you dig up the torrent and sort through the 4 gigabytes or whatever it is. So we're going to dig into that, and we got a bunch more awesome stuff for you. So let's start with a little something from the vault. This is from Sievert. Sievert's one of the he was huge on the 8-Bit Collective, and he's got a really great release that you can get for free on 8-Bit Peoples, and he's been around for a long time. And this is one of the tracks that's like, this is Sievert becoming famous in the chiptune scene. I don't know exactly when this came out. Actually, you know what? I downloaded this straight from the 8-Bit Collective, and I've had it ever since. So I bet if I go into the properties, let's see. When did I download this? I don't know. It says modified Monday, May 3rd, 2005 at exactly 8 p.m., but I think that's a stock timestamp that it uses when it doesn't actually know. I would place this at around 2010 is when I got this. Best guess. This what's the song called? Cartoons and Pizza from Sievert. Okay, so this week we're going to kick the Vancast off with, what do we got? I got some notes here. We're going to talk a little bit about the Mondo Coolcast, going canoeing, Jack X Combat Racing, and a little bit about Atari plug-and-plays. All that and more. Stick with us on Tiger Claw Radio. Good morning, everybody. It is Monday morning, and it is dark outside. Woo! Pitch black. Give me a second here while I get turned around on this Monday morning Vancast. We'll drop the air conditioning down so it doesn't show up on the air. Alright. So I found out before I left the house this morning that 2 legendary podcasts have new episodes out. Death Adder Super Show has got one out that I missed. And by the way, I got to rig it up somehow so that I'm getting an alert when that comes out. Because I'm only ever catching those when I arbitrarily drift into his website, which I don't mind doing, but I get it that can be a problem, right? That's an easy way to lose track of something you don't want to lose track of. But Death Adder Super Show's got a new one out, and also there's a new episode of the Mondo Coolcast out. Both of these I discovered this morning before I left the house, so it'll be a good day for me, at least a good drive home after work. Oh boy, and what a weekend it's been. This is one of those weeks where I'm glad Monday's here. I want to just go out to the office where I know what I'm supposed to do, and it's a little less crazy. Took my son out on the lake yesterday. We rented a canoe and did some rowing. It was a good time. I'm not much of a boat type person. I don't really know anything about boats. But the guy who used the canoe before us capsized. So there was like 1.5 gallons, maybe, no, more than that. Maybe between 2 to 5 gallons of water on the bottom of the canoe. So I just got soaked. And it was pretty uncomfortable. But but it didn't matter. We had a good time. My boy and I went out on the lake. We did some rowing. We didn't fish. I didn't have any like fishing rod or anything like that. We just kind of like rode around the lake in this canoe, which is pretty fun. All his scout buddies were there with their dads in canoes and stuff. It was a good time. So we also played. I can't think of the name of it, but it was one of the games that Balzac talked about in the audio comment at the end of last week's podcast. The Jack and Daxter themed racing game. We sat down with that a couple nights ago. My kids couldn't sleep. They were bothering each other, and it just one of those days where sleep wasn't coming. So we had to separate them. So I took my son up to my office, and we're like, all right, we'll hang out, just you and me, for like a half hour, and then you can go to bed once your sister's asleep. So we were in the office, and I fired up the PS2, and I said, hey man, I got this new game here. And my son was like, he had a really interesting response. He was like, learning new games can be fun, but it can also be difficult. Like, it was a weird moment where he was not ready for a new game. He was like, ugh, another one? Which I never remember feeling that way as a kid. But we played it, and he locked on it, man. We only played it the one time, but he was like, this is my new favorite game, Dad. So thanks to Balzac for recommending that one. Hang on, I'm going into the grocery store now. And we'll be right back. Alright, where was I? Give me a second here. Alright, so we'll take this way to work instead of that way. Keep off the highway. Alright. So, Jack X Racing, I believe it was called. Yeah, it's a good game. Good game. Balzac pitched it as a reskin of Crash Team Racing, sort of one of those Mario Kart kind of games. And it is, but it feels more like Trackmania. I don't know. I think it's a little bit faster paced than I'm used to with a kart racing game. And in a good way. So I dug it, man. I dug it. My son dug it, and that was a good purchase. So far, I've liked it a little bit better than Ratchet and Clank. Ratchet and Clank's a good game, but my boy and I are sitting down together again to play Jack X Racing for sure. All right, what else we got here? So in addition to that, I also recently was at the thrift store. Haven't had a good thrift store video game find in a while. And what I found was one of those Atari plug-and-plays, which, you know, I get it that a plug and play is like not much to holler about, but this is one that I'd seen online for a long time, and I never really thought I was going to get one until I found one for $1.99 at the thrift store, and it's shaped like the standardized Atari joystick, but the bottom of it is a little bit extended, and it's got a couple of buttons on there for game selection, and there you go. It's an Atari, but it's just the joystick, and the games are built in. What better way to have a plug and play? Now, I'm an Atari guy. I maintain and curate an Atari collection that I'm very proud of. So a plug and play isn't going to have on it all the stuff that I like, especially, since it's from the Atari company. That means by default you can guarantee that it's not going to have any Activision games on it. No Sea Wars, or no Sub Hunt, or whatever it's called, and no Sequest. That's what it was called. No Sequest, and no Pitfall, and no Enduro. These are all just like, they're Activision games, so you can take it to the bank. They're not going to be on there. But it was cool. It was cool to pick one up. I've got a couple of places where a plug and play could be thrown in, just for passing by with a few minutes. That's Atari is great for that. Hey, I got 60 seconds to play a game. Well, we'll throw this on and run through Space Invaders real quick. So that's neat. One thing I'd like to do is I wrote a checklist, right? This was something I did before, maybe a couple months ago, longer ago than that. When I started collecting physical games again, I was writing a checklist, and I was like, all right, these are the next 3 games I'm going to get. I wrote a checklist of the games I wanted, and I bought them, and I filled it out, and I made a second one. And at that point, I just lost track of the project, and I moved on to other things. I got some good games that way. I stayed focused, and I got some good cornerstones of my Sega Master System collection. That's how I got Altered Beast and Double Dragon for the Sega Master System, was just keeping focused and getting targeted games off of a list. I can't remember what the new list had on it, but I want to dig that up and find it again. I had a clipboard that just had that right on top that I kept near my video camera that I was shooting with. So I think that would be give me a better idea of what's worth looking for in terms of stuff I want to buy. But it feels good to be all caught up with my game collection. I think at this point, all the games that I've purchased have shown up in the mail, which is like, if you're buying a lot of little games, there's usually always something coming. Man, I bought this one PS2 game. It's this really cheap, cheesy trading card game. I can't even remember what it's called, but clearly targeted a younger audience. But I was $2. I was like, yeah, we'll get this. It showed up in the mail, and there were clearly teeth marks on the case. The kid who had it before me, he must have had a dog, and the dog at one point got a hold of the case and chewed away at it. It's very weird. I haven't seen anything like that before. I know games come in weird, when you buy games off of eBay, the condition is a crapshoot, but it was interesting to me to see something chewed by an animal that wasn't disclosed. If they wrote on the description box, hey, this got some tooth marks on it, then that'd be one thing, but hey, good condition, guys. This game's in good condition. It's in perfect shape. It's mint condition. That's a word that everybody just throws around without realizing what it means. It's mint condition, guys. Except for the tooth marks. Oh man. I went to Battle of the Bits this morning also, because it had been a while since we got a release over there. The last release that Battle of the Bits had that I remember was a VCV rack competition. It was one of these where it's guys with their synthesizers trying to make loops that are composed and recorded at the same time live, as opposed to sequenced. So there's no sequencing involved at all, which, like, on paper that sounds really neat. It's like, give me something that flows, I guess, a little bit more improvisational. But when you actually sit down to listen to it, I personally find it unlistenable. And that was the last release I remember from battleofthebits.org. Well, come to find out, the Spring Track 7 came and went in like June or something, and I totally missed it. And then they put something else out over top of it, so I missed out on getting it when it was free. That's one of these compilations that's got like 50 tracks on it from all different community submissions, and it just totally sailed by me, and I didn't get it. So I'm kind of bummed about that, to be honest. I'm not really willing to spend $5 on it, considering it came out at this. I'm finding out about it at the same time as Chiptunes Equals Win Volume 7, which was an album that has kept me busy on many a drive to work in recent weeks. So what would I be doing if I were back home right now? It's a tough question. I can tell you I would be interested in... I'd probably want to play Ratchet and Clank, to be honest. Jack X Racing I would save for my son, because that's, I think, what made that really fun, was us both playing it for the very first time together. So I'd probably hold on to that one. But I wouldn't mind playing a little bit more Ratchet and Clank. I went through that first level and had a good time with it. But that was basically, as far as I'm concerned, like a Sam's Club sample of the game, you know? So that would probably be what I'd do. But at the same time, this is the busy month, so I have to stay focused on what lies ahead and not what I'm leaving behind. With that, boys and girls, I'll send you guys back to the studio where there's plenty of hot tea and video games for all who are invited. I'll see you back there. Let's go back to the 8-Bit Collective for a second. We're going back to 2010, so 8 years ago. Now, in those days, the 8-Bit Collective, and I know I've gone through this before, but just to recap, the 8-Bit Collective was the cultural hub for chiptunes. Now we've got Battle of the Bits, which is also a great, a great place to hang out. But it's the chiptune community is a little bit more splintered now than it used to be. There's chipmusic.org, and there's also U Collective. We didn't really have all that back in those days. So a lot of people would post songs. If I remember listening to the music and then just F5ing on that board of the latest songs so that I could see new ones come out. And there was one that really captured my imagination. The contributing artist was named Dandruff. And Dandruff decided he wanted to make some songs about Mr. Mouse, which was just something he made up. And each song was going to tell some sort of tale about Mr. Mouse. So when it came time to write his description, rather than tell you anything about the song, what he would tell you is something about Mr. Mouse. And the song was something that was supposed to kind of play into that. Now, the chiptunes were very simple, but I thought they were extremely well done. Very catchy, and they stuck in my head. The one that I have here is called Miss You, Mr. Mouse. And I wish I could remember what the flavor text was, because it was something like, "We hope you had a good time on your journey. We miss you very much." And that was the entire description to the song. It's a clever way to frame music. So look, I don't have anything I want to tell you about the tempo. I don't have anything I want to tell you about the tunes that I used or the tools that I used to make this. I don't want to tell you anything about my inspiration or none of that crap. I'm just going to tell you a little story, and that's all. I thought it was a neat way to use the description box. So this is Miss You, Mr. Mouse from Dandruff. I also think it's worth noting that that's not a song that got a lot of plays. I have no idea how many plays it got, but in total it was probably something like 20. This was not a song that gathered a lot of attention, and I think it deserved a heck of a lot more than it got. There was one other Mr. Mouse song, and it was something to do with Mr. Mouse going to space. He took a vacation in space, and it was also very good, but I don't have that in front of me. I would have to dig it up and play it at another time. Really good stuff, and I wish that guy was still around because I've looked for him and I've come up empty. So that was not an artist who went down in the history books as having left a watermark on that scene. It was just one song shuffled into the thousands of songs that were submitted every day, now on a website that's been gone for almost a decade and long since forgotten about. So that's Miss You, Mr. Mouse. I've got one more track from the old days that I want to play. Just because I have this, you got to understand, this folder, I haven't had this open in years, okay? So it's really neat to dig through. I at one point burned all these to one large MP3 CD that just ran for hours, and that was what was in my car. So the next track I want to play is from Temp Sound Solutions, and they did an instrumental track of the Mario Paint theme that leads into the Wii Plaza theme, and it's 3 minutes and 57 seconds long, so it's not very long, but medium length. But man, what an awesome track! What an awesome track! Looking back, I don't think very much of Mario Paint. I liked it when I was a kid, but this is a song that makes me want to freaking play Mario Paint. You better believe it. This is also somebody, whoever made this, I got to figure out who they were, because I want to hear more like this. right, boys, this is the part of the show where I just like to take a minute to thank the people who are giving their resources to make sure this is coming out every week. It's a Patreon-sponsored show, so thanks to these guys. And to them, I can offer early access to the show. As soon as it gets done, they get a copy, which is usually Friday night or Saturday night. They also get access to supporter-exclusive content. There's a monthly show called The After Party. And I'm also bringing back an old series that I created called Kill Your Mind. I've been working on that very hard for the past couple of mornings, which is going to be a classic roots punk rock program, which I'm super excited about. So all that is offered to the supporters. And finally, I read their names off in a hall of distinguished gentlemen. They are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Darabka, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys very much. Keep your eyes peeled for Kill Your Mind, which is going to be coming out this next week, and as well as early access to the Monster Cast, which is coming out next month. We're going to go back to the van now. This is currently being recorded on Friday evening. We're going to go back to Friday morning, and I was fired up this morning. Good morning, it's Friday, everybody. Friday morning. Can you feel it? Can you feel the energy? Tell you what I feel is cold. I don't know, maybe that's not fair. It's not really cold out, it's just a little brisk, and it hasn't been like that in a while. Still getting used to that season change. Oh boy, I got up early this morning and I spent my 1 hour, because I get an hour at my computer in the quiet. That's what I get all day. And I spent my hour putting together a new episode of Kill Your Mind. Now, those of you who aren't in the know, this was a podcast I did years ago I made it up for Jerry. Oh, hang on a second. Oh my goodness. I had a guy running in the middle of the road, and then an oncoming car at the same time. So I was like, alright, I gotta come to a complete stop. Otherwise I'll kill somebody. Right, Kill Your Mind. This was something I created for Mondo Cool Radio back when Jerry was working on like a shoutcast station. I had this idea that I would do like a roots punk rock show for like 30 minutes, and then he could air it live at a certain time slot. And that kind of fell through. I made a few episodes that didn't really get listened by a lot of people, except me. I loved them because as far as I was concerned, they were the top. It was a show made up of the top choice tracks that were nearest and dearest to my heart. So it didn't really matter to me that it didn't get listened to by a lot of people. But it did get listened to by a few, and I still get asked about it every once in a while. So as a supporter bonus, there's going to be a new episode of Kill Your Mind, and I spent all morning working on it. All morning yesterday morning and all morning this morning. So I'm looking forward to listening to my own podcast on that one. Alright, so what else we got going on in terms of video games and whatnot? I don't know how much this qualifies as video games, but after work today, I'm hoping to go to the local game store for some Magic the Gathering action. I got a list of singles that I want to pick up, so I can put a deck together. I've been down there a couple times in the last week or two. They got a great big giant box. It's like the size of a garbage can, and it's filled with just random assorted cards. They're like, yeah, man, everything in there's a nickel. Nothing in there worth any money, but you're gonna find some cool, cards if you spend the time and dig. I was like, all right, I'm down with that. So I started digging through these singles, and I'd find like a little stack of cards or something. But more importantly, it just felt good to do, especially if like work was really difficult. Run down to the Magic store and spend 20 minutes just digging through the singles to get like 80 cents worth of cards. It felt really good to do. So I was able to make some choice acquisitions that way at the local game store. Apparently what happens is, the way it was explained to me, is people buy these booster boxes and they open them looking for the valuable cards, And the common cards that they've seen a million of, they just dump in this box. And they're like, yeah, you know what, guys, you can have this back and sell it to somebody. So that's what I'm buying when I buy those nickel cards, which is interesting. It's interesting because it doesn't account for what I actually find, because I find a lot of non-English cards and assorted really, really old cards. Like I've got some Ice Age and all that kind of stuff, like old cards from the 90s in that box, which is pretty cool. But that's all I got for that. I don't want to go too deep into talking about Magic the Gathering, because that's not so much video game related. What is video game related is this gigantic Ethernet cable that I got a hold of. I got a big Ethernet cable. And why would I get a huge Ethernet cable? For X-Link Kai. You better believe it. Long enough to connect my desktop that has some real horsepower to wrap around the outside of the room and connect to my my PS2 or my original Xbox, either or, whatever is required. So I'm looking forward to trying this X-Link Kai. We've got so far the list is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2X for the original Xbox, and Jack X Racer for the PS2. And I'm wide open to buying whatever else. Like I kind of want to try the SOCOM games for the PS2, but I also know they're going to be really bad, or not bad, but they're going to feel really outdated. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to figuring out what else we can do with this. But it's funny because I haven't taken the time to Google a compatibility list yet. I'm sure there's a master list of games that I can cruise through and be like, all right, let's buy this, let's buy this, let's buy this, and I haven't done it yet. Isn't there a Phantasy Star Online game for the original Xbox? Would that be on the list? I would love to play Phantasy Star Online. I've never played it. Never played it. Isn't that like one of the gems for the Dreamcast? It was Phantasy Star Online. Come on, man, we can make this happen. I'm looking forward to it in a big way. But you know, September, just being really busy at work, it's been kind of hard to get things together. So I think when October rolls around, the first thing I got to do is complete the Monster Cast. That is slated for an October release, likely a late October release. First week, I'm going to go through the all the cuts, put them together, and record my solo bits, which will be relatively short. Second week, I'll paste it together and figure out how to release it. Because the last time I did a Monster Cast, it just completely destroyed my Podomatic account. Like, it snapped it in two. You guys know I used to get thousands of views on Podomatic. I used to have a really top-rated show on Podomatic. The video game listings, I was in the top 10. I think now, when I release an episode, I peak off at like the 50th ranked podcast. But I was number 3 for a little while. And people would actually tune in and listen and see, hey, what's this Tiger Claw Radio thing? And then when the Monster Cast came out, that was it. It just destroyed my account because I went over the bandwidth limit like right away. So I got to take measures to make sure that doesn't happen. Podomatic will probably get like a 60-second promo that has a link to the YouTube file, and then YouTube will get the full multiple-hour podcast. Last night I sat down to play pinball on the computer. I didn't make any headway, but we've got a pretty spicy competition going on in the forums. TigerClawTV.com. You hit that forums button, it takes you to the Juice Bar. Now in the Juice Bar, we've got Desm 101, we've got Hemrock, and we've got myself. Not all in the same pinball game, but all of us are playing pinball on the regular, I would say. We got some rollerball scores. We've got some we got an NES pinball score, and we've got We've got some Pinball Gold, like Pinball Dreams, Pinball Fantasy scores. We've got Space Cadet is where the real competition is. Space Cadet Pinball that came packaged with Windows 98. So I'm trying to up my game on some of those scores, some of those games, but nothing competitive yet. We also got good old Saga, who participated in a rollerball tournament from a couple years ago. Maybe that was last year. Anyway, he has a killer rollerball score, and he submitted that as well. So, any kind of just almost any kind of NES pinball, almost. There's a lot that's missing, but I think all the choice titles you think of when you think of pinball on the NES are listed up there. All we're missing is Pinbot. People seem to really like Pinbot on the NES. So that would be, if I were to be able to shut this off and just go home. Which, by the way, thinking of shutting this off and just forgetting about work and going home kind of burns my brain right now, because I'm so focused on going to work and dealing with the difficult month and dealing with a day that I know is going to be crazy busy. I'm so focused on that in my head, dropping everything and going home just is not an option. It's not an option. I'm getting ready to smash through my problems like the Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah! A crazy cross between the Kool-Aid Man and Randy Savage. Oh yeah! Snap into a Slim Jim. That's how I deal with my problems. Head on and full of sugar. But if I were, I would probably listen to some old punk tunes that I have set aside for Kill Your Mind, and I would play video pinball. I'd play some Space Cadet. I'd probably get warmed up with Space Cadet, because Space Cadet is where the real competition is, and I'm on the bottom of the scoreboard, guys. Hemrock and Desm 101 both passed me in Space Cadet, and I think the reason for that is because I haven't played it in a while. I got that 2 million score, which was the top score at that time, and I just haven't played it since then. So my high scores, which typically grows naturally, it kind of stopped there. So I'd warm up with some Space Cadet pinball, and then I'd probably make my way over to NES pinball, because I haven't registered a high score at all in NES pinball. I'd come up with something for that. And then I'd probably round it off with rollerball, because I have rollerball scores from years ago written in my high score book, but they're very outdated. Very outdated. I think my last rollerball score is from at least a year ago, and my high score is easily from 5 years ago. So those are all scratched down in my eternal tome of high scores. Which, by the way, it's 2018. That book of high scores that I keep, it's now 10 years old. So I should, I feel like there's a video there. Let's take a look at my high scores for the last 10 years. That would be, after I get the Vancast done in October, I think November will probably be the first, I won't say the first, but the premiere issue of my single-page PDF magazine, the printable, what I'm currently calling the print and play magazine that I talked about. It's got some high scores on it, it's got some info on it, it's got some fun stuff to read, some places where you can scratch down your own high scores, and it's only one page. That's the idea, guys. I talked about this back and forth with Hemrock a little bit, and I gotta finish September, and then I have the Monster Cast, but that's it. Then this thing is happening. So I put some good thought into how that's going to go down. I'll have to head over to Atari Age and see what those guys are competing at, and scratch down some of their high scores and be like, all right, so this is Defender for the Atari 2600. This is my score. These are the scores from the old competition I had back in on TigerClawTV.com back in 2011. And here's what they competed at with on Atari Age, making a total of probably about 15 scores that you can chase down. And then here's some space for you to write your own scores. This month, get out Defender for the Atari 2600 and play it. That's an example. This is a few sources I have to put together a board that you can compete with. Because that's the thing. It's no fun, in my opinion, to be just like, here's the world record, go to it. That's not fun. Because we can't all have the world record. That's not going to be fun. What we can do is say, hey, these are scores that other human beings have captured. You may win, you may not get the high score, but there's some attainable scores on there, so you know if you register X amount of points, hey, at least you beat this guy, that guy, and this guy. I think that's the point, is to lay in a points economy for that given game. That's the point. And then the following month, there would be a much smaller section that would be like, here are the submitted user scores for Defender. That's how it would go. And we would probably it would probably be split up into 3 columns with 3 choice games laid out in that way. Play this game, play this game, play this game. 3 choice games, and that would take up the upper half of the sheet of paper, and the lower half would be these like really short. There'd be a couple of little single point bulletins of news, things to look out for. Maybe like, see, this is where it gets tricky, because when you're thinking about a magazine, you usually think of like big pictures and things to attract your eye and things like that. But a print and play PDF, you got to be very careful about doing that sort of thing, because you don't want to make something that is too costly to print. If I cover it in, bright blue magazine ads from the olden days, yeah, you'll have something cool to look at, but you're not going to want to print it because it's going to gobble up all your ink, thus defeating the purpose of a print and play PDF. This is still happening. Oh yeah. Atari Age does have some awesome competitions, though. I like our competitions in the forums that we do, but Atari Age has some spectacular high scoreboards. It's unfortunate that they cycle a game every single week, so it's not like I can go look at their 100 games that they've done over the past a couple of years and then just play any one of them and submit a scores. Over there's so many players, they have to do it like, all right, we're going to play Defender this week, and then by Sunday night, we're closing submissions. And that's the time slot you have to get a score in. For us, there's only a handful of people, so it's like Saga will submit a score from, a year ago or however long ago it was, and hey, it's fine. That's fine, there's only 4 of us. Why not? Why would I not include that? But Atari Age, it's a different story. So what I would like to do is take some of the massive diversity of games and scores and people and kind of bring that into a format that's more accessible. You don't actually have to get in there and try and get in with people and get an account and all that kind of stuff. You can just, hey man, just print it out, get yourself a pencil, maybe a clipboard if you're really feeling froggy. Play some games, man. And by the way, Kaiser, don't think nobody's paid attention to your scores. Kaiser made a submission that was all time attack scores from a Crash Bandicoot game. Now, it's unfortunate that he picked a game I didn't have, but if I get my hands on that Crash Bandicoot trilogy, you best believe I'm coming after those. At least one, because that was like, 10 levels? That was clearly like, hey man, I enjoy time attack. These are all my high scores, which is awesome. It's one of the reasons I love using high scores as a subject to play video games. There's no online multiplayer for the Atari 2600. Why not? Because they didn't need it. All you had to do was figure out what the score was. Your online multiplayer was done through snail mail. You would write out to Twin Galaxies in the 80s. Ask for a catalog or something like that. And that's how it was done. And that's what I'm trying to recapture, boys and girls. I get excited thinking about it. It's just like Kill Your Mind, right? the idea is I'm making a product for myself. I'm making something that I would want to have. If I was sitting at home playing video games, this is something I'd be really into, and I think that's that's how I'm able to come up with something that might have some value. So we'll see. That's slated for a November release. October, I'm focused on the Monster Cast, getting that done. In November, we're going to compile and release a premiere test version of the print and play magazine. I know I'm not the first person to do like a PDF-based magazine. That's old news. That's an old format. All right, hang on a second. It's drive time. This is me paying attention to how I'm driving so that I don't get in an accident. And I think we lived. But now I'm behind a dump truck that's going 2 miles an hour. That's all right. Well, boys and girls, you know what I would do if I were back at home. And I gotta go do my day at the office. This has been a good one. However good or bad this however good or bad this Vancast came out, I'm fired up now. I'm fired up and feeling good and ready to go to work. So this was worth it to me to stretch this one out to 20 minutes. And with that, I'm going to send you guys back to the studio.
There we go. Are we good now? We're back safe and sound in the studios. I just tried to start recording again, and I immediately reached for the mic stand, and the needles just started popping all over the place. So, all right, it's time for the fail bag. So what this is let's talk. I got some comments. I'm gonna read them. If you want to be read on the fail bag, you guys can get a hold of me pretty much anyway. The show's small enough that if you want to get me, you can. Any comments that are left on YouTube are viable to be read. Any comments left on the websites you download this from, they're viable to be read too. Easiest way is probably YouTube. And also, if you know me personally, hey, write me an email. Just let me know what I can and cannot say on the air. So the first one comes from Hemrock. Hemrock writes these emails to the show that oftentimes become segments of their own, which are really great. And this is indeed chock full of some good material. So let's see what we got. He writes, Hey CF, thanks for another episode. I think it would be fun to have you read a choose your own adventure type book with the community. It would probably be easier to do on the podcast with people posting comments in the forums. That way you don't have to worry about making numerous small videos, and it might encourage traffic to the Juice Bar forums. Yeah, I agree. My only concern is I don't know how long it's going to take to read some of the segments of the book, so I don't want it to run on too long. I think, so I don't think I would drop it right in the middle of TCR, but it would definitely be like a special podcast feature, I think. Also, Juice Bar forums priority sounds like a good idea. He also writes, it was great to hear from good old Kazlab. Now, may I make a quick clarification to my video game brother-in-arms? Hey Kaz, I used the word cumbersome as opposed to complicated in reference to Excellent Kai, but I'm sure I could figure out how to set it up via the YouTubans. However, my issue is that the main television downstairs is where my internet router, I read that wrong. I read this beforehand so that I would read it right, and I still read that wrong. So bear with me. I'm going to jump back a step. My issue is that my main television is downstairs, whereas my internet router is upstairs. So I'd either have to work some router magic, buy a couple of long Ethernet cords, or figure out an upstairs TV solution. Any of those options are going to take some work. But hey, if you and CF can get something going, I'd be more apt to try and join. I can't make any promises, but keep me posted. I have a wide variety of PS2 and OG Xbox games, so let me know what you guys have worked out, and there's a good chance I have a copy. However, I do not have Jack X Combat Racing, but it's on my radar now to pick up. Thanks for the recommendation. Alright, quick break from the email. If I remember correctly, the way this is explained, you're not plugging into your router. You're plugging an Ethernet cable from one end to your system to the other end to a running computer, if I understand it correctly. So I would imagine the jump point between would introduce more latency, but I'm hoping these old games would have an easier time with it and be able to adjust. It sounds kind of hokey, but I'm willing to try it. That's the way it was proposed to me. But yeah, you also raise a good point. I think Kaz and I, we can give it a shot, since we got some of the games. He and I can try it. We can try some Jack X racing, and then based on that, we can go from there. If it works well, then we can pick a target game that we all like. What do you like for the Xbox that isn't Morrowind? Because when you try new games, you usually report back on it. You talked about Enclave. You talked about a couple things. Do you have any other solid go-to games apart from Morrowind for the OG Xbox? I know you've been collecting for a while. And did you pick up anything that okay, when you get a new game and you bring it home and you play it and you like it or you don't like it, that's great. Do you have any games that you've done that with recently, but then went back to like after getting even more games? Have you done that? You know what I mean? Like repeat offenders, but only in the last 2 months. Anything like that? I don't know. Just curious. Let's get back to the email. He writes, now back to the main failbag email. I enjoyed your story of your encounter with Derek Alexander. He still makes great content to this day. Do you keep up with him? To answer that question, I haven't watched Derek in a while, just because something about his stop skeletons from fighting format. He's still making good content, but I don't think the magic is quite there anymore. Put it this way. Now he makes great content, but he used to be a great YouTuber. I think that's the best way I can explain it. I also think it's a thing of when I first started, I put him on such a high pedestal that it's human tendency to put people on a pedestal and then tear them down. So I feel like through no fault of his own, I've just kind of moved to other people to watch, and I haven't been back to him quite as much as I used to be. I thought Derek was a top-notch podcaster as well. I thought he did, especially a lot of his early work with Ben from Video Game Takeout, was some great podcasting, some really influential podcasting for me in my early days. Let's go back to the email. He writes, name a game that requires XP. Well, if you ask Microsoft, then they'll tell you that Space Cadet 3D Pinball. You mentioned Dragon Quest 9 for the DS, and you decided not to purchase it due to the shutdown of the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. Although it might prove more difficult to play with people from across the country, I don't see why the local multiplayer connection wouldn't work, especially for a game like DQ9. Speaking of the DS, I've been thinking about getting back into my DS Lite. Some of my favorite games for that system were Geometry Wars. Oh yeah, I love Geometry Wars. And Retro Game Challenge. Do you have any suggestions, especially that are lesser known games? Thanks in advance. Okay, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about the DS library, but I did get a couple of games. Nanostray was a pretty cool shooter. The DS was my first experience with Scribblenauts, which I think was at its best on the DS because the two screens worked really well for that game. But those are just games I know. I wouldn't say those are my top recommendations. There is a game that I like that I know you won't like that called The Dark Spire, which is like a game that was made just for me. Just for me. It was made just for Alex. And The Dark Spire is basically an old school computer RPG. First person, dungeon crawling, high difficulty. That's The Dark Spire. It's everything I would want. And it's amazing. Amazing. I know you're also an RPG guy, but I don't know how much you would mesh with it. I would say do a little YouTube search. Take a look at some pictures. That might be all you need. But The Dark Spire is a special experience that is unique to the DS. The most fun I ever had on a DS was with Pokemon Soul Silver. And that was because that was when the Pokewalker came out. And you could walk around, and the steps that your little pedometer would pick up, you could then use in-game. You could level up your Pokemans, and then you could also use your little Pokewalker to catch new Pokemans. That is a game that has been affected by the shutdown of Wi-Fi. I used to play that game. I played it with Sendu a little bit. He had Pokemon Pearl, and I played it with Jerry, who had some other Pokemon, and we used to talk on the DS and stuff. But that was still a fun game. Just playing through the single player campaign took about 100 hours, and I had a good time with it. So if you like the Pokemans, Soul Silver and Heart Gold, those were good games. Let's get back to the email. He says, Nintendo has launched the NES Netflix edition with a total of 20 NES games and a promise of more to come. Be warned, I don't think that you can keep those classic titles on your system indefinitely. It's merely a rental. I gotta say, dude, 20 games, and how much is their service cost? Probably like $10 a month. $10 a month for 20 games? Are you kidding me? That doesn't sound like a lot. Doesn't sound like enough. Does not sound like enough. There better be brand new Nintendo. There better be an official licensed Zelda, original Legend of Zelda remix game. Then I'd be interested. Why is that so difficult to ask for? You know how we got ROM hacks of like old Zelda games and stuff? Well, how come there's no official ROM hacks? You ever think of that? What? They could single-handedly just eliminate or just destroy the pull that ROMs have by making official licensed top-notch ROM hacks that you couldn't get anywhere else. You never would. I mean, I don't know. I know I've gone down that rabbit hole before. I'm not going to this time. Sony, back to the email. He says, Sony is joining all the cool kids and releasing the PS1 Mini. They have announced 5 games with 15 more to follow. The games announced include Final Fantasy VII, Ridge Racer Type 4, Jumping Flash, Wild Arms, and your favorite fighting game, Tekken 3. Because we all know when you buy a bunch of PlayStation games, you're bound to get a copy of Tekken 3. Dude, I gotta say, those are pretty good picks. You could do better. If we sat down with a chalkboard. Do you remember the time we had when you were on the show early on after the reboot? This is probably like episode 175 or something. And we were talking about the dream games we would pick for a Nintendo 64 Mini. If we sat down and had a conversation like that, I bet we could come up with slightly better picks. But those are not bad. Even Tekken 3. For a 3D fighting game for the PlayStation, you could do worse than Tekken 3. You could do better also, but you could do worse. I'm hoping that Crash Bandicoot makes it on that list somehow. But what were the other games you picked out? Final Fantasy VII. That's surprising. That's surprising that they're getting away with that. That was licensed. Ridge Racer was a great series, although personally Rage Racer was my favorite. Jumping Flash was a really cool game that I didn't really come to appreciate until my adult life, but it's also very, very cool. Wild Freaking Arms. That's a cool game. I wish I had the original Wild Arms. I've had Wild Arms 2 forever, but Wild Arms is an awesome, awesome RPG. That's gotta say, got me a little interested. If it's reasonably priced, I might be jumping on board with the PS Mini. Let's get back to the email. He writes, speaking of mini consoles, Sega has announced that their mini Sega Genesis will be pushed back until 2019. Supposedly this is for quality control. I see this as a step in the right direction since it likely means that Sega is babysitting At Games, the company charged with making this console. As you know from personal experience with the Sega Genesis Flashback HD, At Games does not always deliver a high quality product. I mean, you can't even use the D-pad to navigate the main menu on the Flashback. Alright, so let's take a break here and talk a little bit about At Games. At Games, from what I understand, has had such low quality so consistently, I don't think they're capable of making a good mini at this point. I don't think they're capable of doing it. The reason why is because in order to fix all the problems with those old At Games consoles, they would have to change their entire design philosophy. I'm not talking about, okay boys, let's do a good job on this one. I'm talking about the way they think of design would have to change top to bottom. And change like that in a company, it doesn't happen unless heads roll. Heads roll from the top to the stinking bottom. The guys who are putting together designs are going to make a better design, and they're going to hand it into whoever the project manager is, and the project manager is going to say, cut some corners, and they're going to go back to their designs, and they're going to cut those corners, and we're going to end up with another typical At Games Sega product. And I think that's what happens. They're not. It's something. Something is wrong with the structure of the company. It's not the way they're building games. The structure of the company. They don't have enough people on QA, or the talent pool is not there for programming. So by the time it gets to QA, there's no time left to fix their issues. Believe me, when they fired up an At-Games console, they knew at release. The company must have known that the interface was garbage. That was the best interface that they could come up with. That's what I'm telling you. I don't think that company is capable of making a killer system. And it kind of sucks, because this is Sega. Sega deserves better. And if Sega is working with At-Games to make their official consoles, that means the canon official Sega hardware of the day is at Games quality, and that sucks. That sucks to hear of as the fate of a company that used to make stuff like the Dreamcast and the Sega Saturn. So, personally, I hope they sack At Games. I hope At Games gets absolutely blasted, and some other sort of contracting company comes and takes the reins. Because right now, whatever they announce for their new system would have to be pretty killer. It would have to be pretty awesome for me to consider it. And even then, it would have to be pretty killer. It would have to come out, and other people would have to use it for a couple of months, and then I would consider getting it. Because At Games has got a tarnished reputation, and when reputations get tarnished, it's difficult to untarnish them. But you never know. Let's get back to the email. He writes, the 50-game Sega Genesis collection has been announced for the Nintendo Switch. I think it's pretty much the same one that's available on Steam. It seems to be a clear indicator that we will never get a proper virtual console on the Switch. But hey, these collections are more economical. In any case, I hope you're doing well and break through life's problems like the Kool-Aid Man. Oh yeah! Keep rolling retro. Hemrock. Hemrock, my man, always awesome to read your emails. I always get such a kick out of it. I hope you're doing well. I hope life is good. And I hope you're okay with the interweaving the answers so that I don't have to struggle to remember all of the awesome questions. Alright, so last week on TCR we did, last week was episode 252, The Sad Tale of Dragon Warrior 7. And we had some good comments. Let's see, we're going to start with Alex Swingle, who writes, no, we should start with the oldest and then move. Which ones are the oldest? Hold on a second. Sort by newest first. There we go. We are going to start with Alex Swingle. He writes, at 8 minutes, Dragon Warrior 7 is not worth playing. The story of finding treasure map pieces to form a new area to explore is cool, as well as the multi-classing feature. However, the areas didn't have anything amazingly awesome about them, and the multi-class system was beat 700 battles to level up as a fighter and get scare. Tons of grinding, no cool payoff. I played through the majority of the game as a young man-child, since man-children will play anything sci-fi/fantasy that requires no real skill. It also had a build-your-own town feature with the same problems as the previous stuff mentioned. Satisfying recruiting townsfolk, got nothing of use from the shops they unlocked. A little disappointing, but I'm glad you gave me the some insight into the game. I kind of stayed away from a lot of the reviews and that sort of stuff from that game, because that's on one of my like life achievement is play through as much Dragon Warrior 7 as possible. I'm not even interested in beating it. I just play through as much as possible. So from there, we move right on to Jerry Terrifying, which, by the way, I was really excited to get this because I don't get many comments from Jerry Terrifying. And at one point, he was my solidest of solid bros on the internet. Still is solidest of solid. But now we've grown a little older and a little wiser, and we have things to take care of. So it's always a treat to hear from him. And he writes, total disagreement with Alex. Dragon Warrior 7 is awesome. I've only played the remake, which shortens it a bit and makes finding tablets easier. But playing it in bursts is the key to enjoying it. Its story is told in small vignettes. Complete an area and take a break, and you'll have a good time. As for DQ9, Wi-Fi shutting down has no effect on it, really. The DLC can be unlocked via local co-op, which I just did for someone on GameFAQs, and you can do for you someday. The multiplayer was never online and was always local only. There was a Wi-Fi shop, but all you'd be missing is some weapons and clothes. You might be able to alchemize them, not sure. I'd recommend picking it up. I'm playing it right now with my woman. The co-op is pretty fun. I also picked up the collector's edition of DQ11. It is beautiful, and if you can get it, get it. Jerry. Oh, wait, there's a reply. There's a reply! So spicy! Hang on a second. It's taking its time to load. Oh, boy. Come on. Come on. Load that reply. Tell you what, why don't I just pause the recording until it finishes? Alright, there we go. Hang on. Okay. Alex Swingle replied, the remake made the game playable. Here's how bad the grind got. Took 100 battles to get heal if you wanted to train as a cleric. Sorry for not clarifying the PS1 version is not worth getting. Making it mobile changes expectations of the game. I figured since CF was referring to the PS1, he wanted that version. Guys, I did want the PS1 version. What version are you talking about that made it better? Was that a DS one? Where did you play it where it was made better? Please clarify. Thank you. Alright, let's see what's next. I had to reload the page, so let's do this again. Sort comments by newest first. By the way, if you ever want to see something hilarious, go to the popular YouTubers and sort their comments by newest first, so you can see what the community really thinks of them. That's good times. Alright, Kazleb writes, oh man, let's do this X-Link Kai playoff now that you have Jack X. I'll continue this discussion in the forums. And we got a couple replies to that. Mecha Menace says, text comments, is your voice still hoarse from the last clips? And Ballsack writes, lol, yeah, 2 times a month is my limit. We'll probably come back again before the end of the year. You know what, Kazleb? Whenever you're ready, brother, you're always welcome on this show. And I completely agree. We need to do this, not just to do it, but we need to set a time. I want to wait until October because September is a crazy month, so I don't want to make any appointments until my September busy season at work is behind me. But on the other hand, hey, that's only like a week away, so conceivably we could do this in like 2 weeks, maybe a week. I honestly don't know how to reach you apart from the forums, so you'll have to let me know if you ever get on Steam. Or we'll have to use the next round Discord or something. I haven't used Discord in a while, but Discord works too. But yeah. How would you want to communicate when we actually play? Would you use Skype or Discord or what? Let me know. All right, Mecha Menace writes, oh yeah, slap that Genesis bass. This Protodome music sounds more like something produced on the 32X. Yeah, that Protodome is very special. That is something unlike anything else in the video game music / chiptune scene. It's a tough scene to stand out in because there's so much stuff and you can have access to pretty much anything you want. But there is nothing like Protodome. Death Adder, my man, writes in. Give me a second. Let me get a sip of tea here. A long running show today. We're an hour and 10 minutes in. He writes, that would be 1 part retarded, 2 parts fun. I'm pretty sure that sums up almost everything I do or enjoy, so go for the choose your own adventure segment. At least try it once. Have you heard of the 30-year-old boomer meme? It's a meme about 30-year-olds who act like people. I read that wrong and made it hilarious. It's about 30-year-olds who act like old people. Like, Dad mows the lawn at 10 a.m. on Saturdays, and when he sees the kids playing Fortnite, he simply responds, yep, Quake was a good game. I feel like you would appreciate it. Lonk down below. I hate when messages in Dead by Daylight. I hate when I get messages in Dead by Daylight telling me how to properly play the game. I've been responding with, yep, Quake was a good game, for maximum lulz. And he gives a link. I have not heard of that meme. But I think I'm the one it was designed for, since I'm a 30-something now, and I love Quake. I think it was the pinnacle of online computer gaming. And, well, maybe not the pinnacle. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not fair. It was just my personal favorite, alright? So I'll have to check that out, and there is a YouTubin's link. So there's some comedy to be had there. And all right, boys and girls, it's actually pretty early tonight. It's only 7:20 in the evening. On Friday night. And this is how I spend my Friday nights when I can, is hanging out with you guys. So look, whatever it is that have brought you here 1 hour and 12 and a half minutes into Tiger Claw Radio, thanks for spending your time here with me. I appreciate it. This is my little clubhouse, and it's awesome to mix with you guys and hear what you have to say. Especially the last 2 episodes. I've gotten a lot of really awesome feedback from you guys, and it's just made me feel really good. So thank you very much for that. Just a reminder, Kill Your Mind is coming out in a week. The Monster Cast is coming out in a month. And in 2 months, you're looking at a 1-page video game magazine that you can print out and play along. And that will be a very strange experiment. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys in the next one.